The University of Arkansas did a recent study because farmers are filing for Chapter 12 bankruptcy at an alarming rate. There's a lot of things that are driving that. And before you say, I told you so, they all voted for it, it's going to hurt us too. So, just so you can own the red hats isn't necessarily the greatest way to look at this, because it's going to hurt us. And it's going to hurt a lot of people that really cannot afford to have it hurt them. So here's what's going on in the farm world and why they're filing bankruptcy. And this is not just small independent, this is moderate, this is larger farms. The cost to manufacture the items or grow the goods is gone up. So seeds, fertilizers, stakes, workers is all increasing. And the workers, there's a lack of them because of the indiscriminate raids that have been going on. But it's not just the farm workers, it's also the packaging facilities. So all of those things that the farmer grows goes to packaging facilities to end up in our grocery store. And they've been raiding both farms and those facilities. So we have a downturn of employees to process things. So it's a problem. The secondary offset is that every season they take out loans to finance the current season. And the loans are between 7 and 9% interest, which is direct impact because of inflation is why those loans are higher. But also the CFPB has been repealed, and therefore, you don't have bank regulations as much before as the consumer protection situation. Then the marketplace, the commodities. So when you finish making your farming items, the price to sell them is low. So they're not recouping their funds at the end of the season. And that is a problem because they're not being able to pay off the loans. All of those are going to lead to one or two things. We're going to have a shortage because there's going to be less of them out there producing for us. And two, the costs are going to go up because of all of the items that I just listed. So this is a direct impact of who we currently have in office and a lot of the policies he's put in place. But it is going to hurt us at the grocery store, and that's the bigger problem.
So Donald Trump, I think he's hurting American farmers. Donald Trump and the entire MAGA administration is going to starve Americans sooner than you'd think. And I think this can be attributed to how this man is thinking or his plan. So there's a New York Times article with the title From Food Aid to Dog Show, How Trump's Cuts Hurt Kansas Farmers. So he cut AIDS, then he cuts dog show. So it says Kansans created food for peace for 70 years, a fund of rural income and pride. Now at least one grain broker is trying to sell grain that once fed the world as dog food. They'll go ahead and say, wheat grows so prodigiously where here on the Kansas High Plains that in 1953 the surplus birthed one of the Cold War big ideas. Food for Peace, a federal government program that delivered excess bounty to hungry post-war world. The program was administered by the U.S. Agency for International Development, which Elon Musk fed into the world cheaper. On a weekend in February, Kansas Republican lawmaker tried to save it but failed to persuade Donald Trump, who last month proposed cutting an entire 2026 budget for food for peace, as well as another 8 programs dear to Kansans. The McGovern-Dole Internal Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program. Trump administration said the program were inefficient and wasteful with dubious results. This was the latest blow to Kansans, where about 80% of those on the High Plain voted for Donald Trump. Agriculture make almost half of their state's economy. So, this Food for Peace program, the farmers actually are paid, to produce the food. Now, Donald Trump, when he's dealt with this, what will these farmers actually do? Or where will these farmers actually take their crop? We all know Trump tariffs, ate the market for most American farmers. Kansas was a red state, right? Then this red state, Trump is going ahead and hurting them. And this attributed to this latest, the controversy where Trump now don't want your votes. So basically, he doesn't care if you lose your food programs or not. The man is generally okay. Last year, Kansas sold half of its annual wheat crop abroad, but those buyers have mostly dried up. At least one big grain broker is now trying to sell Kansas grain that once fed people overseas for use in dog food. So the value of your product, the value of your farmland has just been reduced to a mere dog food. Pena, a Kansas wheat farmer and former president of the National Association of Wheat Growers, is frustrated that there have been more objections to administration from wheat farmers and the state largely Republican congressional delegations. He said, "We need people who are willing to speak up." He said, "I think privately they say things, but publicly no. And I'm not sure what their pain threshold is." So the Kansas farmers, they have chosen to be, oppressed. They have chosen to suppress their feeling and not to speak out. Let's talk about the recent move of actually Donald Trump, striking a deal with Coca-Cola for them to use sugar cane on Coca-Cola instead of corn syrup. Then my question is this: with the type of economy that the Trump administration has put on to many of the Americans, what will happen to those corn farmers?
Today, for the first time in years, California fields have gone silent. Rows of strawberries are untouched and vineyards are silent because the people that feed America said, "This is enough." Farm workers walked off the job in Coachella, in Ventura, in Oxnard, all the way down to San Diego. Not because of the weather and not because of the pay, because of fear. Fear of ice raids, fear of tear gas, fear of helicopters, fear for their life. Think I'm kidding? Because I'm not. Last week, unfortunately, California lost a farm worker who died running for his life. They're calling this strike Huelga para la Dignidad, which means strike for dignity. It's important to note that there's no union, no corporate America money. It's just mothers and fathers and children that are too afraid to go to school because they're not sure if they're going to be able to come home to their parents. They're asking the citizens of the United States to boycott. Don't buy any produce, don't buy any meat, and don't buy any poultry until these ice raids stop. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship for the people that are the backbone of our food system here in the United States. So the strike started today, July 16th, and it'll go on for 2 more days, July 17th and 18th. So we need to remember that they are risking everything, and they need to know that we hear them, that we stand for immigrant justice.
The Guardian reported, shock to the system. Farmers hit by Trump tariffs and cuts say they need another bailout. So, with extreme weather and Trump's looming trade war, U.S. farmers are relying and resigned to, So farmers across the United States say they could face financial ruin unless there's a huge taxpayer. funded bailout to compensate for loss generated by Donald Trump's sweeping cuts and chaotic tariffs. So these guys basically need handouts, bailouts. But it's the same people or the same person they voted for that is the beginning of their foes, the beginning of their wars, the beginning of their Trump, bankruptcies. When people say it's time for MAGA to find out because they F for the they F you, at first, and the world try to tell them, but they choose to ignore. They choose to turn a deaf ear, a blind eye to what the world was trying to tell them. Now they need bailout. Trump is cutting funds. Trump is slashing budgets. So are you sure you're gonna get the bailout from this administration? It's say small and medium-sized farms were already struggling amid worsening climate shocks and volatile commodities market, on top of being squeezed by large corporations that dominate supply chain. In recent weeks, farmers in Texas and across Midwest have suffered billions of dollars of crop loss due to unprecedented heavy rainfall and flooding. The climate crisis, fueled extreme weather, is compounded by the US president's looming trade war and the administration targeting popular federal programs and staff, leaving farmers reeling and resigned to needing another bailout. So it's all about bailout. It's all about bailout. The Trump administration is making a looming threat. The evidence suggests that Project 2025, a proposed agenda by Trump and his allies, could further exacerbate the crisis for American farmers. Democrat.org detailed that this agenda include deep increase in logging, ending steep increase in logging, ending federal environmental enforcement for farms, imposing work requirement for food aid, reducing schools meals for children, and demolishing the network of farm subsidies established since the New Deal. These changes will gut rural communities. They say these changes will gut rural communities and town, as MCNBC reports, with potential long-term harm to sustainable farming practice and rural economic stability. Let's talk about the previous budget proposal. The Trump administration is making worse for most American farmers, right? We all knew, Texas, red state, farmers, they were very happy going to the ballot, voting for Donald Trump. Trump is cutting federal programs that helps farmers, and what now, they will introduce bailouts. These bailouts will come as a means of actually, loans. And these loans, you actually be charged very high interest rates to ensure that your farm is completely gone. What about these are farmlands that are actually filing for bankruptcy? These farmlands that are filing for bankruptcy, it's high corporation. It's those big wheat that are coming to buy those farms because, they suffocated you to the ground. They left you just a corpse. Now they are coming to salvage the little meat that is hanging on your body. So the previous budget proposal in Politico and the Wall Street Journal says includes cut to USDA of 57.7 billion shillings in mandatory agricultural spending by 2030, lowering crop insurance subsidies, tightening eligibility for farm payments, and reducing conservative programs for farms. This history suggests a pattern prioritizing large agricultural corporations over small farmers. Now, small farmers contribute to major U.S. production, groceries of fruits, vegetables, milk. But now, the budget proposals, it's a favor for the American corporations, the big corporations that have competitive advantage over you small farmer. With a trade aid during the first term disappropriately benefiting top 10% of the recipient, Trump initial budget, the first term, the majority of the minority, the 10%, people receive the budget aid. Then, who received over 50% of the funds? The 10% of people of the recipient receive over 50% of recipient. Then the 90%, they were left to share the last 50. And it was, out of 57.7 billion, small farmer was left with about 5,000, according to the Environmental Working Group analysis. What's funny, or something funny, there's an article from, let me read for you. A Tale of Inequality research indicated that a small and medium-sized farmers have borne the brunt of the crisis, with the large agricultural corporations often benefiting from bailouts and trade aid. The Food and Water Watch highlighted that during Trump's first term, government purchases worth over billions went to big meat companies like JBS, 77 billion, and Tyson Food, 28 million, while small farmers were struggling. The inequality is evident in distribution of bailout, which top 1% of recipients are receiving an average of 103 million compared to less than 5,000 from the bottom 80. As per the EWG data, the impact in the numbers, farm bankruptcy increased with 559 filings in 2019, and farmer closures saw that 8 small farms, 1 to 9 acres, ceased operation between 2017 and 2022, according to the USDA 2022 Census of Agriculture. So during a Donald Trump first term in office, it saw the majority, like a lot of, to around over 3-figure, half of a 3-figure are small scale farmers and medium scale farmers filing for bankruptcy because they couldn't sustain their agricultural products or their farming. Now, it's a small percentage that receive the fat, the big bread of the funding that was provided by the government or the bailout. Now, you ask yourself, this is the same people that you voting for, you went ahead and vote for in the second term. Things are not working out for you guys. Now, there's this article from the National Sustainable Agricultural Coalition with the title, Broken Promise. Over 30,000 farmers denied funds. These are many, and you'll find that these farmers, most of them actually, came from the red state. Most of these farmers wake up very early in the morning. They went to vote for this man that is actually, denying them funds. It read, shortly after his inauguration on 20th, 2025, January 20th, 2025, President Trump issued an array of executive orders, a practice that has become common in recent years. However, abnormally, several of these executive orders triggered a pause on broad swath of federal fundings. As a result, in the pause, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is now refusing to make payments to farmers on signed contract for voluntary conservation. By threatening to renege on this contract, the Trump administration is breaking commitment to farmers and threatening the economic stabilities of rural America. Since the passage of Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, American farmers, ranchers, foresters, and rural small business have been signing up in droves to receive funds by entering into formal contract with the Department of Agriculture. Rural residents in every state have benefited from IRA through contracts to support conservation effort on working lands and improve energy efficiency and energy independence. Many projects funded through the IRA are already a year or more underway, and consequently, farmers and ranchers have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars out of their pockets, trusting that the Department of Agriculture will hold up their end of legally binding agreement. Pausing the IRA funding means leaving tens of thousands of farmers holding the bill for work they were legally promised. The move not have to be complete alone. Democrats on September last year quoted Donald Trump devastated farmers and threatened to double down with a Project 2025 agenda that will hurt rural Americans. You all know you are told, but because I think it was written in Democrat, you thought that these guys, they are against you. Donald Trump spent 4 years in office putting farmers last. And now he and his extreme allies are doubling down with the Extreme Project 2025 agenda that will devastate rural communities across America. Trump can't defend his failed record. His reckless policies bankrupted small farmers while subsidizing with big agricultural and wealthy corporations. Now, Trump Project 2025 plan for rural American is to return to the same failed blueprint. But Americans aren't going back. Voter will reject the Trump Vance ticket to the ballot box because hardworking Americans deserve a better president who fight for them. Unfortunately, they didn't. It's quite good how the Democrat frame this, that farmers will not accept this. They'll fight their way in their ballot. But they forgot that these farmers are the same people that don't listen. These farmers are the same people, that they ignore the red flags, they ignore the warnings, and now they are facing the consequence. I saw the farmers were actually, they decided to hold a 3-day demonstration. I'm really curious, people with the information on how this went down.
Buenas tardes. Miren qué precioso. Se vienen las cosechas del 2025. El tomate, vente para acá. Este es el del tomate. Y se viene la cosecha de la almendra. Miren, bien tupidita la almendra. Se viene la cosecha de la cebolla, se viene la cosecha del nectarín, se viene la cosecha de la uva, de la lechuga, del ajo, ¿verdad? Se vienen todas las cosechas. Y también se vienen las deportaciones, también se vienen las redadas. Saben que acaban de aprobar para destinar más recursos, para hacer cárceles para nosotros y para deportar a mucha gente. Así que es muy importante que te prepares, es tiempo de que te prepares, prepárate con dinero, prepárate con víveres, por si no vas a tener que salir a trabajar 2-3 días, estés preparado, no vivas al día. Prepárate con un mes de renta, prepárate con bastantes alimentos enlatados. Se vienen tiempos difíciles, ¿verdad? De lo demás, te vamos a tener que mantener informado. Carga tu tarjeta roja. Así que Dios me los bendiga. Sí se puede, valientes.
This is the consequences when we chose the wrong direction. Oh my God. Yes. It is what it is. Make America great. Yeah, low prices.